Why didn't you guys tell me to read this sooner? I know most of you probably thinking that I already read this material, but no, this was the first time I've read the new Avengers Omnibus by Brian Micheal Benids, David Finch, and more. I loved it, man. From start to finish, this was a fast, action-paced book that was such a great jumping on point for so many big Marvel events that people actually liked. Before we get into this review, it's going to have heavy spoilers. We're going to do a deep dive over the head, going through every issue, not every page, but a lot of them. So if you don't want to get spoiled, don't continue to watch. Otherwise, let's go on this ride. I do want to thank Dynamite Entertainment for sponsoring this video. They have 2 new comics coming out this week. Wednesday, April 6th, Dynamite Never Dies issue 2 and Project Superpowers Fractured States issue number 1. Make sure to support Dynamite, and let's jump into this review. All right, here's a better look at the front of the dust jacket for the new Avengers by Brian Micheal Benids and David Finch. Plus, you have a slew of other creators on here as well. Better look at the spine. Volume 1 for a Volume 2 that has yet to come. And I didn't really mean to rhyme. We have the comics on the back, the non-trade dress. It retailed $125. And we'll talk about what it collects more in the table of contents. All right, so the inside of the dust jacket, it gives us a little preview of what's to come here, a biography on all the characters. And this is really a great jumping on Marvel event book because so much happens during and after this, which we'll talk about throughout. This is an old school Omni, so it's got that like hard, dark faux leather. You got the red foil logo on the spine, on the front. Now my copy is a little bit damaged. I have that thing where it looks like this, and this will go inward. So I'm down for a reprint and hopefully a Volume 2. But for now, let's jump into this one. Got the nice kind of blood red ledger here. Sentry on the front. It was dope to read the Sentry material here. And the table of contents. Now, I read this kind of broken down into little arcs. So I read Avengers 500 through 503 with the finale. And then I went and did something. Then I did New Avengers 1 through 6. It's its own little arc. Same thing. Then I maybe knocked out 7 through 10. Then this kind of separate story, you know, and so on. So it ends up going. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So let's start here at the beginning. Avengers 500, and like it says in the synopsis here, everybody's at the Avengers mansion, but then you have Jack Hart, or Jack of Hearts, who's dead. He runs up to the Avengers mansion and it explodes. So right away, it's like this kind of mystery. What's going on? We suffer real deaths here. We have the death of Ant-Man, and then eventually Hawkeye gets killed. And this is all what kind of leads up to the breaking up of the Avengers here. And then we have the Vision. So a kind of like quick, who could it be? It's the Vision. Then all of a sudden, he's telling everybody that he's got this fail-safe virus that has been unleashed within him, and it unleashes these 5 Ultrons. So then they start fighting the Ultrons, decapitating them, no big deal. But then She-Hulk kind of hulks out uncontrollably, and she goes crazy, rips Vision in half, and goes like full on savage She-Hulk. Fights against Cap, leading into the next issue. Very like fast-paced, heart-pumping action here, jumping off in the omnibus right away. I love the art. Putting She-Hulk down with this punch. Janet Van Dyne to the hospital. She suffers injuries and she doesn't go back to normal form. They're not able to operate on her. And then we have this dope panel. This is like answering the call to the Avengers, right? So somebody tried to blow up Avengers Mansion. Everybody shows up to see what's going on here. Then we jump into issue 502. So Nick Fury, a lot of double agent espionage stuff going on with Nick Fury and Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, who plays a huge role throughout this omnibus, as well as onto Secret Invasion, which that omnibus directly follows up here. This was an interesting aspect too. Now they're getting attacked by what looks like alien invaders. Everybody's here. Spider-Man, Hercules, Falcon. I mean, literally everybody showed up to help support the Avengers, and now they're under attack by what looks like Kree soldiers. But you already get the feeling like, man, it's like one thing after another. Who's really behind these attacks and the death of these Avengers? And then that's when Doctor Strange shows up, excuse me for my absence, and he tells them who's really behind all the attacks. And basically we find out that it's Wanda. Wanda's causing these attacks. she found out that she had 2 kids, Wiccan and Speed, and then everybody's been keeping this secret from her, and basically she goes crazy. So if you think WandaVision, borrowed aspects from that. So this is where they're being convinced that it's Wanda doing this, doing a reality warping thing, lashing out because she has these 2 children and she feels like the Avengers have them held captive. So she just unleashes crazy hordes of reality warped heroes against them. And then Magneto comes to pick up his daughter. So the Avengers win the day, but we all know what happens with Magneto and Scarlet Witch. So that doesn't take place in this omnibus, but that leads into the House of M. So we'll see that also teased here. Now, the Avengers finale issue, I believe it had a few different artists that were just doing like these homage panels. All the Avengers members telling about their favorite Avengers moments, whether they were a part of it or not. You have different art. So that's kind of how this finale was. And the Avengers finale ends this way. So the Avengers, they agreed to break up. That's what ends up happening with the Avengers finale. They break up. It's not working. Tony Stark took too much of a loss with the destruction of Avengers Mansion. He can't afford to fund the Avengers anymore. Then we get into New Avengers. So 6 months go by. There's no Avengers. And then you have what ends up being a plot to break out essentially every super criminal that's on the raft at once. It's like 42 or 44 or 46. I feel like the number changes a few times. Luke Cage, awesome in this omnibus. Definitely dug the hell out of Luke Cage. And then here we have Electro blowing up the raft. Wow, Luke Cage and crew were just happened to be there. Right now there's no Avengers, so Spider-Man comes to help. Cap comes to help. Here's just showing Electro letting all the villains out, saying that, hey, everybody here owes me one because everyone's getting busted out, which also leads to the Sentry. So Robert Reynolds, or Bob, is an extremely powerful character who has more powers than what it seems. He has the power, of 1 billion exploding suns, but he also has some type of psychological powers as well. And they go really meta here with Paul Jenkins, the writer of Sentry. We'll see it when we get there. So we see all the villains now breaking out. Carnage, there was a dope little scene here. Carnage lashed out. And it's giving you like all these different characters, like all these different villains breaking out, who they are. And then we have the Sentry. So he's extremely powerful, probably the most powerful hero. And essentially for New Avengers, it's like a mixture of Thor and Hulk. It's like super strong, godlike, but also seems like it could be a little uncontrollable as well. Oh, and this was so sick. The Purple Man scene with Luke Cage, and he tells him, hey, kill all your friends, then kill yourself, and then bam, the issue ends. I'm like, damn. That one hit hard. Thankfully, that power didn't work on Luke Cage. I forgot what it was. Oh, there was power dampeners on the raft, so they still weren't at full power. So Captain America is now convinced that this whole formation that happened, these heroes that came together to fight the breaking out of 40-something supervillains, was a sign that they needed to form a new team, the same type of thing that brought the original Avengers together. So he starts putting together a team. Luke Cage, Daredevil says no, Jessica Jones, who's Luke Cage's wife. Actually, they get married during this omnibus. It's weird seeing Jarvis because we don't have like a real Jarvis anymore. It's kind of like such an Alfred to Bruce Wayne kind of thing, but he plays his cool little role here. Spider-Woman cover by David Finch. So Spider-Woman getting a lot of shine here. She's born from Hydra parents. She was raised Hydra, became S.H.I.E.L.D., but she lost her powers along the way. So there's this whole kind of weird double cross happening here with Spider-Woman. And essentially, Hydra knows about it and Nick Fury knows about it. Nick Fury doesn't run S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. Maria Hill does. And everybody knows that she's feeding information to both sides, but Hydra did give her powers back. That's like her big secret here in this omnibus as to why she's kind of in bed with Madam Hydra, Viper, who we see a little bit in this Omni. So they end up in the Savage Land. Everything leads to essentially Sauron. For some reason, somebody went through great lengths to break out Sauron, which I kind of felt like never really got resolved. I know it all leads up to the mutant energy that escaped during House of M coming back into mutant form, but I just don't really remember what the hell that had to do with Sauron. So Captain America ends up adding more people to this Avengers team as we go along. I mean, we got Spider-Man, but then we end up getting Wolverine. We end up getting Spider-Woman. They get captured on purpose here and they're naked, just like in like 80s cartoons. So we have this cool little Savage Land battle. But I mean, it was fun, man. I'm a Sauron fan. I liked to see Sauron pop up here. Again, not really too sure how big of a role that played into the next arc, which is like a pretty big deal. So here comes S.H.I.E.L.D. At this point, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't like the idea of a new Avengers being formed. They really don't like the new idea of the Avengers announcing their new team, which they do kind of against S.H.I.E.L.D.'s will. But then it's kind of cool to see S.H.I.E.L.D. have to reach out to them and help out a little bit later. So we get something from the Illuminati. The Illuminati stuff hits pretty hard in this omnibus. Going back to Sentry and Captain America trying to figure out what's his deal. And we find out that Sentry, he's so powerful that he used his powers to make a comic book writer make it seem like everything that happened with the Sentry happened in fictitious comics. So this stuff happened in comics, but the heroes don't ever recall actually living in those moments. Something like that. I'm not really explaining it well. But Sentry is scared of what's called the Void, which is like any positive kind of act he puts out using his powers, he'll get that equal and negativity from this Void kind of mirror version of himself. So he's like super afraid of it. The Void killed his wife, so he's got this whole kind of like broken psyche kind of thing because he's scared of the Void. And here we have basically the Fantastic Four, Inhumans, and the X-Men and the Avengers all here to confront Sentry or Bob, who they end up kind of getting on the team like a reluctant Bruce Banner. I mean, that's what it kind of feels like. I really like this one where they'll kind of blur out a scene so you feel like the moment of everything exploding and rumbling around them. I thought that was really cool. All right, now we have the Void came and Emma Frost goes into Bob's mind to basically figure him out and figure out how to get past this so that he can be a use to the Avengers. Nice art, though. Big double-page spreads. I mean, basically, Emma Frost gets him together is what happens here. Ends up becoming the Sentry. But then it kind of like spawns this weird watchtower over the new Avengers Tower, which was just like a 4-story skyscraper that Tony Stark can't rent or get rid of now because I forget what the reasons were. Because it was his connections to the Avengers or something like that. I think this is now the beginning whispers of the Superhero Registration Act, which leads into Civil War. So we have this disassembled, then we have House of M, then we have Civil War, and like I said, this book will all lead into Secret Invasion. I liked the Spider-Man's dialogue here. I've seen some people critique that recently when I've been posting pictures on Instagram and whatnot. But there was a lot of panels in here where I literally laughed out loud. Not even just from Spider-Man, but just all together. I felt like Bendis did a great job of making this playful superhero banter during fights. You know how that whole trope. But it still felt like it was fast-paced and kept moving forward from one big thing to the next. And boom, what do we see on the cover? We see Ronin. So we get a nice Ronin arc here. And there's a reveal on who this Ronin character is. We get the Hand here. Nice fights with Ronin and the Hand. The Avengers come to help out. It ends up being that the person under the Ronin mask here is actually Maya Lopez Echo. So this is a pretty cool ninja fight, which Spider-Man will reference later on as they continue to fight ninjas and then fight superhero beings and saying, I wish I was fighting ninjas again. Here's where we see Spider-Woman meeting up with Viper, with Madam Hydra. And we're trying to figure out what side she's playing. And, like I said, it turns out that she's playing both sides here. There was this whole kind of breaking Silver Samurai out as one of those 42 inmates. And him taking over the Hand being like that kind of visual presence that everybody would know, which led the Avengers out to him to capture him because he was one that that escaped. A lot of cinematic movie type stuff. I can really see this being adapted to the movie, to the MCU. Here's the Maya Lopez reveal. Going back to Spider-Woman, kind of figuring out what happened. This is her losing her powers and stuff, and how she was offered by somebody to get them back, and just giving us more back history on Spider-Woman as she's kind of explaining to Captain America what's really going on. Cap knows something is up, and this is where we learn everything. How she got her powers back, how she's still working for Nick Fury. Her allegiance is really with the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D., but she is really with Hydra. She did make a deal with them to get her powers back. And all the other Avengers, hear everything as well. We get this iconic cover. That's Frank Cho. Oh, this was interesting. So they want to strike a deal with J. Jonah Jameson because Spider-Man's going to be on the new Avengers. They shake on it. And when I turn the page and I see this scene, I'm like, I feel like, woof. Like, wow, that's a pretty powerful panel right there. But it turns out, like, just a couple pages later, J. Jonah Jameson broke the deal and went on a whole tirade on how they tried to, bribe him or this or that. And he's a menace with the Avengers and all that. So this is super cool. This is that arc that kind of ties into the mutant stuff that I was mentioning earlier with Sauron. And it's just basically we see from space this big force come and basically destroy Alaska. This city in Alaska kills everybody there. So we see this person here, which we're assuming crash landed from outer space. I mean, that's what it looked like. We find out that that's not really the case. Essentially, that's a mutant who absorbs energy. That's like his mutant ability. And for whatever reason, all the energy that escaped from House of M slingshotted back to him. Now, as he's this person, he's in Canada now from Alaska. The first people called to act are Alpha Flight. He kills them all. We'll accept one survivor, we find out later. So that hits pretty hard. Almost like Doomsday coming down and killing... who did he kill before? Did he kill anybody before Superman? He came down and fought the Justice League, and he beat them pretty bad. But I'm pretty sure he kills all of Alpha Flight in that issue. So now we know that there's this threat. It devastated Alaska. It looks like somebody either crash landed, or like I said, we later find out the energy just was absorbed by this mutant. Notice Spider-Man is now in his Civil War gear. This is leading up to Civil War. That's happening in other comics during this time. Here's our mutant. And at first I'm wondering who this is too. I'm like, man, what is this? Is this like a cosmic entity? Like, what is this? And then we find out about the whole House of M thing, and that's where all the energy went and all that. Captain Marvel has an encounter with him, and she ends up going to her binary form from like back in the Bronze Age. Totally does this to Iron Man in the comic, so I like when the cover is not like a teaser that never happens. He does like explode him right out of his armor. Boom. So super powerful being. How do we fight him? Boom. Sentry gets called in to help. So very Thor-like, yet with that kind of Bruce Banner can't control himself kind of thing. So he fights with him. Pretty epic, cosmic level type battle. Silver Surfer-esque, Human Torch-like. This is where they're figuring out who he actually is. We're looking at all the mutants and all their powers and figuring out that's what that energy source actually was. New Avengers 19 cover. Looks awesome. Mike Deodato Jr., I believe. Got the Iron Spidey. And now we have Iron Man who scoops Sentry up. I guess they figure out that they can communicate with him, that they're not going to have to fight him one-on-one, and they find another way. They really just follow him because really the energy source is bringing him to Genosha where it all escaped during House of M, and then boom. I love this New Avengers 20 cover. Mike Deodato Jr. again. Kind of like Hulk inspired, right? With seeing the reflection of the enemy within the glass. Even has like what looks like Wolverine's claws right here. Very cool cover. So then we get House of M, a brief retelling from Magneto's point of view. As we see Magneto now take all the power from that mutant Michael, but is really revealed to be Zorn. Now they lose me at Zorn because there's kind of like two Zorns. There's like two origins. It's confusing, man. I've read this stuff from New X-Men with Grant Morrison, I guess leading into Astonishing X-Men that had Zorn stuff in it, which I believe was a different one from here. I'm confused with the Zorn stuff, and I don't think I'm the only one. So anyway, battle with Magneto. Essentially, Alpha Flight guilts this guy Michael to become Alpha Flight since he killed the other members, and the Sasquatch one is the only one that survived. The annual has the wedding of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. which was cool. I always liked their dynamic. I loved how they did it in the show, man. The sex scene in the show was crazy. I'm just saying, man, that was well done, and Bendis wrote them so well. And the Alias book was a great read as well, kind of showing off a little Iron Man 3 action here of Iron Man controlling all of these suits at once. That's pretty cool. So that's going to lead into this New Avengers Illuminati. So heated Illuminati meetings, especially between like Namor and Black Panther, and not agreeing to the Illuminati, thinking it's a bad decision, but them continuing without Black Panther's blessing. And then just like Black Panther said, Namor doesn't agree on something later on, and it becomes a big deal, and it's like a whole big battle. So kind of just what T'Challa was worried would happen. I think it's regarding the Superhero Registration Act, and what we also get here is the seeds of World War Hulk and Planet Hulk on getting him the hell out of town. So that idea is brought up here by Iron Man and agreed upon, and then that leads into that big major event. So like I said, this is a big stepping stone for a lot of big good reads in the Marvel universe. And then we're into the Civil War stuff, like I said. So this is where we have all of that. Luke Cage standing up against Iron Man, and him being kind of like the big vocal point about not signing the Registration Acts. So this is now Iron Man calling in Jessica Drew saying, listen, Cap told me what you guys had going on. We're not doing that anymore. That stops here. AIM actually comes and rescues her because she's important to Hydra as well. So a lot of crazy stuff here with Spider-Woman, and like I said, she plays a major role, and that continues on into Secret Invasion. There's also references to the Secret War arc by Jonathan Hickman and the Quake character that Captain America specifically wants on his team. Like when it really goes down, he's like, I need Daisy, I need Quake. Then we get the initiative of Civil War. I mean, basically what happens is Tony Stark becomes the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Every superhero who has signed the Superhero Registration Act works for S.H.I.E.L.D., so essentially Iron Man is in charge of everybody. This is Sasquatch making that Michael mutant character from before essentially join what's now Omega Flight, which looks like a badass team, man. Beta Ray Bill. You got, what's his name? Is it Vindicator, Cap, Sasquatch? Don't know which Spider-Girl this is. Is that Kraven's lover, Calypso, from the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man arc? It looks like it. I want to read that book. And then we're teased here with the Thunderbolts. I mean, that's stuff that's not told within this omnibus, but I want to read more of that material. You got Bullseye, Venom, and it's set up to look like they're bad guys, but the big twist is like they're actually the good guys. Green Goblin, they're the Thunderbolts. Spider-Woman and Captain Marvel, they have a lot of history, but they're on opposing sides of the Superhero Registration Act. Then we get the Hawkeye arc. So he's dead, but he ends up being brought back miraculously somehow from the events of House of M. So we have kind of like what he's been doing since he's been back to life. You got the whole Ronin thing that happened, and him wanting to find Scarlet Witch and ask why. You know, why did you kill me and Ant-Man and a couple of us and not others? But her mind is kind of broken. So he meets her and he sees, just like Doctor Strange warned, he's not going to get any closures or any answers here. They actually hook up, which I thought was kind of crazy. Like, damn, you really hooked up with Scarlet Witch after that? After she killed you, doesn't really remember. It's not even really the same person right now. But he didn't get his closure. Does come back as Ronin. You have Elektra in the hand. So that's all introduced here. So I want you to keep that in mind. Right now is where we start really getting this heavy Elektra presence. She's the head of the hand. We have this whole new Avengers kind of got to go on a mission to save and rescue Maya Lopez. So they first go there to take down Elektra or the hand or something like that. But eventually she gets captured. And they go back with Clint Barton to rescue Echo. And at this point, Civil War's over, so Spidey's with the new Avengers. Doesn't have the Iron Spider suit anymore. He's got the symbiote suit. But I think it's just the costume. I think it's the Back in Black where he's just wearing a fabric costume. And there goes Clint as Ronin there. Then we have Luke Cage. He's just trying to live his life, but they just won't let him because he's like technically a superhero and he hasn't signed the Accords. So he hides out with the new Avengers with Doctor Strange. He's got like this cloak that makes it look like he sold the property and that it's vacant to hide essentially from Iron Man and his Avengers team. The Elektra stuff is badass. The swarm of hand ninjas is dope. And this is the second time we're fighting ninjas here. And It's funny. Spider-Man says, "I wish we were going back to fight Brother Voodoo." So that you're reading this and you're like, "What is he talking about?" And then it goes and shows us that whole kind of interaction for whatever reason. But this is very Civil War as well. Avengers versus Avengers. Here's the whole Brother Voodoo fight. So Brother Voodoo is kind of what's the scare is that he's gonna remove the cloak while Iron Man and them are visiting Doctor Strange home. They're really holed up there, but the magic that Doctor Strange has up makes it look like it's vacant, and Brother Voodoo essentially can't get in. But Tony Stark knows that they're in there. And Brother Voodoo kind of says, like, I can't see him, but I don't know for a fact that they're not there. The end of the arc is the hand. They've killed and resurrected Maya Lopez, Echo, basically making her like a new Elektra, making her this weapon. The new Avengers are trying to save her. And then boom, as you see in the cover here, it looks like they're able to talk some sense into her. And she turns to fight Elektra and kills her. She almost killed Doctor Strange. He does get released into his astral form, and he's able to help, and that's what really helps turn the tide. Now, boom, after the kill, the big aha, what the F moment is the big moment that leads into Secret Invasion. Like this whole time that Elektra's been running the hand and kidnapped Maya Lopez, and all this time she's been a Skrull. And we get that whole franticness, how we start off the Secret Invasion Omnibus. What does this mean? How long has it been? Who else is a Skrull? And then boom, that's how this omnibus ends, and we get into a ton of variant covers and bonus material. And since this is a review of the omnibus, we might as well just go through it. Ronan looking like Reptile from MK9. So a bunch of connecting covers, then all together, then those Sentry variants. Some more variants tying into Civil War. Combination covers. I always love the Frank Miller inspired torso stab. Then we get a biography on all the 42 villains that were broken out of the raft by Electro, which was the formation of the new Avengers. So you get all of that. Slug, Tiger Shark, Tiger Style, the Wrecking Crew. So you get a whole little encyclopedia in the back. Some scripting for the Avengers 500. It's the director's cut. You do get every cover of the Avengers. I want to say it's issues 1 through 500. It's pretty cool to have as well. New Avengers director's cut script, interior pages, original art and sketches. And it was a big deal, like putting Wolverine on the team. Wolverine didn't even show up to the press conference to announce the new team because he's a literal murderer and killer. But it was a big deal forming the new Avengers. I feel like I kind of glossed over that, and it was really fun to read that part. We have Wizard covers. That's awesome. By Greg Horn, Jim Chang, and Justin Ponser, and Frank Cho. And that's it. All right, guys, there we have it. New Avengers Omnibus. Absolutely love this. I blazed through this in like 2-3 days. Like I said, reading the table of contents, just knocking out little arc by little arc during little spurts of the day. Got me so excited. I know there's another event that this links to because it's disassembled in Siege. I actually do have the Siege oversized hardcover still sealed, probably worth a pretty penny sealed, but I'm going to read this and probably do a review as well. But then, yeah, leading into what becomes Planet Hulk, and then we have the Secret War references that had already happened, House of M, Civil War, leading into Secret Invasion. And like I said, I did read and review that. Make sure to check that video out as well. But I really dug this. So I don't think there's been any announcement for a reprint. It's an out-of-print book, and there has never been a Volume 2. I've heard Volume 2 is not as good, the stuff that would be printed in that book. And I've read a lot of newer Avengers stuff during other events. I guess I just never ended up catching this material. Really dug it. Highly recommend it. It was super fun. Give me your thoughts on New Avengers in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.